Hello everyone, Zeno What If here. Those that are new to the channel, subscribe to see some of the content I made. Leave a comment down below for any ideas. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Link down in the description of the fanfiction of this, What If. To bring in part 12 of What If the Gate appeared in G.I. Joe. Chapter 22, Skydiving, Sightseeing in Hot Springs. To say that the trip of Centurion's group and Falmart VIPs was eventful, is an understatement. First, there was Beijing with all its splendors, including famous Forbidden City. Pina was surprised to know that the Forbidden City is actually about 500 years old, and has been known as the place where the Celestial Emperor was seated in the center of the stars. Now, it was also the headquarters of the Chinese Communist Party and its chairman Xi. But that was just for starters. Next, the group visited Chinese World Trade Center, which was even bigger than Japanese. After that, came the visit to Russia and its capital, Moscow, as well Kremlin. Rory was particularly got founded by the Lenin's mausoleum, saying that she can hear a man in there sleeping. This has actually shocked others, especially Americans, who started to make theories that Lenin is not dead but actually sleeping. Some started to think that Simpsons was right with their predictions that Soviet Union would return. Centurion, for his part, only slightly laughed at the naive Americans, who's once again showing their paranoia about returning communism. After meeting with Pudilov, they went outside Moscow, where Centurion, as promised, took the women for skydiving. Tommy and others were waiting at the fields, while from the plane in the sky, jumped several other figures. Yo Joe, heard famous battle cry. It's them, said Tomita, pointing skywards. Everyone looked to see. Amazing, gasped my UI. For Pina and others, it was something incredible, as if they literally flying in the air. Rory was strapped to Centurion, Tuka with Haruka, Lele with Michiru, Pina with Scott, Bozes with Eric, Panache with Min, and Hamilton with Setsuna. Tuka played with the wind, using her magic to conjure up wind spirits. As they gathered in the air, Centurion gave the signal, and they all, one by one, deployed their chutes. Soon, they were all gliding down to earth. Damn, said Atami, looks like my idea went down the drain again. What do you mean? Asked Kuribayashi. I thought they would freaked out when they jumped out of that plane, answered Atami, but I guess that's not the case with those women. That reminds me, sir, said Tomita, why aren't you go skydiving? Well, mumbled Atami, it's because. Let me guess, grinned Taylor, you've got scare of the heights. What? Yelled Kuribayashi, a ranger like you scared of the heights. Okay, look, sighed Atami, during my training, I've got frozen a little bit, so they've kicked me out in order to keep the opening. When my commander saw this, he said that I can't have a ranger badge without airborne badge, so I won't get any holidays until I've got that thing worked out. That's why I prefer not to jump out of the planes, unless it's absolutely necessary. Some ranger you are, snorted Kuribayashi. What's a ranger, who can't jump out of the planes? I'm a land operative, thank you, shot back Atami. I can climb and descend by a rope from a helicopter, that suits me just fine. Speaking of which, I've heard you've also wanted to join the Rangers, Kuribayashi, but got kicked out. Care to explain to me, why did that happen? Kuribayashi then got embarrassed, realizing that Atami is right. She did try to enlist into special forces, but because of her recklessness, she got kicked out and returned to JGSDF. She then sulked, looking into the ground. Thought so, said Atami, so next time, Kuri-chan, think thirst about your own skeletons in the closet before you'll choose to expose others. Kuribayashi was sad, until she felt Williams's hands on her shoulders. Cheer up, Shino, he said, not everyone has their best talents in everything. Thank you, Williams-kun, blushed Kuribayashi. Whoa, are we got a love couple here, chuckled Puller. Yup, nodded Taylor, we sure do. It was then Centurion and others landed. That was incredible, exclaimed Pina, I've never thought something like that possible in this world. Can we do it again? Sounds good to me, said Panache, I quite enjoyed wind rushing through my hair. I wouldn't mind, said Bozes. But why do we have to get on that noisy thing, groaned Hamilton, looking at the airplane. I was really enjoying this flying stuff, said Rory. I was dancing with the air spirits, exclaimed Tuka. I think I need to research magic for flying, said Lele. I'm glad, you guys had your fun, said Centurion, but right now, you need to remember, that we're only visited Russia, now we need to move on to America. Is that where you, Scott, Eric, Williams and Puller lives? Asked Lele. Yup, nodded Williams, you would really love our home of the brave and land of the free. Home of the brave, surprised Rory. Land of the free, asked Tuka. It's from National Anthem of United States of America, answered Centurion, just listen. He then got out his smartphone and activated the music. Oh say can you see, by the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars, through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh say does that star-spangled banner yet wave, o'er the land of the free, and the home of the brave. Whoa, gasped Lele, that is your country anthem. Yup, proudly said Eric, that's us, old red, white and blue. So would you say, if we go there now? I can't wait to taste the good old-fashioned hamburger. Not to mention some chili dogs with mustard, added Puller. And the cola to sup it up, said Williams. Yankees, snorted Haruka, always with their fast food and high cholesterol. No wonder 40% of America population is suffering from overweight and overconsuming. Well, they've been far from their home at least for 4 weeks, Haruka-chan, answered Michiru, plus, I'll bet you missed the good old Texas-style food yourself. Well, can't be helped with that, smiled Haruka, shrugging her shoulders, I sure really want to eat that beef jerky with root beer. Alright, then it's settled, said Centurion, let's head to Sheremetyevo Airport, the cruiser one there is waiting for us to take to New York, our first city to visit America. Let's roll. As they were going to the airport, the girls were discussing their skydiving experience. That was so fun, said Tuka. It felt nice, replied Rory. I want to jump higher next time, said Pina, I will count on you in the future, Sir Prime. No problem, answered Centurion, all you have to do is ask, Your Highness. Great, exclaimed Pina. I still don't understand, how those steel birds fly, lamented Hamilton, they don't even flap their wings. It's really simple, Hamilton-chan, answered Haruka, they use the power of the air itself to get off the ground. Air power? Asked Lele. That's right, said Haruka, you see, the faster anything moves through air, the faster the air resistance goes. As the object moves more faster, the air around him becomes so thick, it would start to hold it on it. So, all you need, is something to pull or push you further, so that the air power will push you up forward. I see, said Hamilton, is that's how your helicopter's flying around? Precisely, answered Setsuna, helicopters' blades are spinning so fast, they create an air power, that will push them off the ground. And the jets using the propulsion of their engines to push themselves higher and faster, said Haruka, that's why they go so fast, they've outtraced their own sound barrier, so that when they fly over you, the sound comes only after few seconds later. Sounds ridiculous, snorted Hamilton, there's no way a steel bird could fly like this. Oh no, snorted Haruka, folding the paper airplane, well, watch this, Miss Unbeliever. She then throned the paper plane, and it flied bypassing the stunned women knights. You were saying, proudly said Haruka, causing Hamilton to silence in shame. Several hours later, they were in VC-711, flying to New York. Commander, what is New York City like? Tuka asked Centurion, as she sat next to him and Michiru. It's one of the largest cities in the world, Tuka, answered Centurion, compared to its size, it's bigger than Tokyo, but smaller, than Beijing, Moscow and Los Angeles. It also known as the trade capital of the world. Trade capital? Asked Pina, you mean, that all merchants from your world coming to this city, Sir Prime? More like, all the world trades are going on in this city, Your Highness, answered Centurion. One of its streets, known as Wall Street, is the place for New York Stock Exchange, where all the buyings and sellings are happening almost day and night. For example, if you buy enough stocks of the company you want to achieve, you can buy it and become its owner. But not just that, it also the headquarters of the UN. UN, said Hamilton, you mean, the same organization we've meet in Tokyo. Exactly, said Centurion, what you saw there, was just their special commission, but here, in New York, is where they conduct their business. This is the first time I will be going there as well, said Atami, but from what I have heard, this city also known as the Big Apple, or the city that never sleeps. Not to mention, one of the most diverse, Riza added on. How big is this city? Mayui piped up, as she and her maids overheard the conversation and decided to join in. Hey Williams, Atami called over his friend. The girls have some questions about New York City. Figured you can answer them since you are from that part of the world. Okay, the Marine replied, as he GT up from his seat and walked towards Atami's group. Taking a seat next to them he asked, so, what do you guys want to know? You're from New York? Lele asked curiously, as by now the Falmart contingent had gathered around the two men. Sort of. Lived there for 10 years before my family moved to New Jersey, the Marine explained. Still, I would visit from time to time when I wasn't in school or when not on duty. How big is New York City? Mayui repeated Tuka's original question, as she too was quite curious herself. Is it like Tokyo? In some ways, it is, the Marine explained. It's not as big as Tokyo, but just as busy. It's certainly the most diverse city in the world though. How so? Rory chimed in. You could basically meet people from all corners of our world in New York. Williams replied. Hell, my dad is from New York but my mom is from India and they met in New York. So New York, it's like the capital of your country, Pina asked the Marine. No, that would be Washington, D.C., said Centurion. However, we're not scheduled to show there. The president has many things to do right now, so we better not bother him at work. So your largest city is not your capital? Boses asked in disbelief. Surely such a diverse city would be where the seat of government would be, right? Nope. Puller replied, as he joined in on the conversation. New York is just one of our largest cities, if not one of our more important. You will see for yourselves once we arrive, Williams added, but believe me when I say it's a city like no other on earth. It is said that if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. You can make it there, you can make it anywhere. Pina repeated that phrase in her mind, as the rest of the group continued on with their conversation. A couple more hours passed as the group found ways to kill the time, but eventually the aircraft's pilot announced that they were now approaching their destination. Excited by the news, the Falmart contingent and even Atami and his friends looked out the windows and were greeted by the most magnificent of sights. The sun had long since gone down in the west and New York City was now illuminated by the millions upon millions of lights that were scattered across its landscape. The many skyscrapers and towers that filled the skyline glowed brightly in the darkness in a kaleidoscope of colors, while the surrounding harbor seemed to mirror the city's glory as if paying tribute to its greatness. By flare, Boses gasped out in awe, it's even greater than Sedera. Pina for her part, just sat there wide-eyed at the city. If she was not convinced that this world was far more advanced than her own before, then she certainly was now. Then again, it would make sense that a civilization that was experts in the art of war, would also be masters of construction. This is New York? Mayui asked curiously, as she and her maids gazed at the city. Yup, Williams said proudly. New York, New York. A city so nice, we named it twice. It looks so lively, Tuka commented excitedly, as the elf and her new friends marveled at the American city. It was just so bright. It's the city that never sleeps after all, Puller added on, as he joined in. Impressive. Rory gasped out, and what is that? That is Statue of Liberty, said Centurion, the symbol of America. Is that your goddess? Asked Hamilton. Nope, said Haruka, it's actually a symbol of the nation. Wow, gasped Tuka, it's so big. What is that torch she carries? Asked Lele. That is the Torch of Liberty, answered Scott, it used to light to the ships, that coming to New York. You mean, like a lighthouse? Asked Panache. Sort of, said Taylor. It would be another half hour before Air Force One touched down in JFK International, but instead of making its way to the main terminal, the VC-711 taxied its way to an area that had been sealed off from the rest of the airport. As the Air Force aircraft made its way towards a hangar, its occupants could see a number of vehicles were parked nearby and that there were armed soldiers posted around the structure. Eventually the VC-711 came to a stop and the fuselage doors opened to allow its passengers to disembark. Upon exiting, the group made their way down the stair truck and were greeted by a middle-aged man that wore a black suit with cream-colored jacket. "Corwin," exclaimed Centurion, shaking his hand, "good to see you, old friend." "Nice to see you as well, Commander," greeted him the man. "I've been instructed by the President to provide your security." "Thanks, Corwin," said Centurion. "Everyone, allow me to introduce you to Art Corwin, Chief of the U.S. Secret Service. He's been commissioned by the President himself to provide our security." "Secret Service?" asked Pena. "They're bodyguards to the President," answered Scott. "They provide security to the President himself and foreign dignitaries that come to the country." "All right, people," said Centurion, "let's get into our vehicles and get moving. We'll stay a night in the hotel, and tomorrow we'll go sightseeing." "Can we visit that big statue we saw?" asked Rory. "We'll do even more," smiled Centurion. "Let's roll." Waiting for them was a mix of black Chevrolet Suburbans and marked New York Police Department Ford Taurus Interceptors. Centurion and his group would be traveling in a custom Ford Transit bus which was also operated by the Secret Service, and after filing in, the convoy was off with a short burst of police sirens and into the city. The ride into New York was thankfully an uneventful one, as the Joint Secret Service NYPD motorcade made its way into Manhattan and eventually, the group made it to their hotel. The Secret Service had leased the top 2 floors of the establishment for both Atami's group and their security detail. Each member were given their own rooms for the night, save for Mayui who had her maids stay with her and Pena who wanted to share a room with Boses. Curiously, Atami and Riza were given their own room to spend the night in. A fact that made the couple rather happy. Apparently Komikado had insisted that such an arrangement be made for the husband and wife. However, while most of them were getting into sleep, several guests have decided to pay a night visit to other rooms, like Pena to Scott, Boses to Tomita, Panache to Taylor and Kuribayashi to Williams, thus making their night quite memorable. Centurion, for his part, was fully aware of what's going on, as he and Michiru listened to the noises coming from other rooms. "Sounds like our guests are really enjoying themselves, Kiro-chan," she giggled. "So are we, Michi," answered Centurion. "Come on, don't be in a hurry, we've got all night ahead of us." "Yes, Kiro-chan," gasped Michiru, resuming her rhythmic movements. "I love you, Michiru-chan." "I Shiteru, Kiro-chan, I love you, Kiro-chan." Morning soon arrived and after enjoying their complimentary breakfast, the group had reassembled in the main lobby. The group's uniforms had been cleaned overnight and returned just in time for them to get dressed. The same had been done to Pena's and Lady Bose's clothes as well, though it was a bit of a challenge to convince the pair that nothing bad would happen to their official imperial garb. Mayui and her maids had also changed for the event, as the young countess now wore a simple sky blue dress while both Persia and Mamina just changed into fresh-made uniforms. Riza was also there as well, but she just wore a blue jeans with a white t-shirt and brown jacket. The anime manga artist was just along for the ride after all and there was no reason for her to dress up. Eventually the group were led to the hotel's underground parking area where they boarded the armored-up transit and on their way to see the city. "Lombardies," both Williams and Puller exclaimed, as the group now found themselves outside the aforementioned pizzeria. "You guys are gonna love this place," Puller added. "They make the best pizzas anywhere." "Pay, za?" Tuka asked curiously, as the two Marines lead the group inside the famous establishment. "I always wanted to try a genuine New York-style pizza," Riza exclaimed happily, as she and the rest of the group were led to their tables and given their menus. "Ooh, it all looks so good." "Williams," Shino asked the dark-skinned Marine, "how will you be able to pay for all of this?" "Don't worry," the man replied. "Adams said the Secret Service will cover all charges. But don't overdo it, okay?" About half an hour later their meals had arrived and everyone began to eat. Both Riza and Atami had the Cake Boss special with pepperoni, while Mayui and her maids ordered calzones for themselves. Puller and Tomita gleefully shared a large original margarita topped with sausage, with Pena, Panache, Hamilton and Boses. While Tuka, Lele and Rory enjoyed a white pizza, with Rory enjoying it more than her two companions. Williams for his part, just ordered a calzone stuffed with Italian sausage and meatballs. with Shino ordering the same for herself and eating with her secret senpai. Needless to say, a good time was had by all, with Pina even suggesting that not even the palace cooks could do any better. Now I know why Williams and Puller gush about this place so much, Shino thought to herself, as she happily ate her meal. As the day progressed and with Williams playing the part of tour guide, the group visited many familiar and famous locations in and around the city. The Famart natives were awed when Williams took them to the top of the Empire State Building to view the city skyline. Pina was absolutely impressed that such a large city not only existed, but seemingly thrived as well. After this, the group traveled to the American Museum of Natural History in the Upper West Side of Manhattan, where they were given more insight on how this world worked, as well as how life evolved over millions of years to become what they were now. They are so advanced, yet they see the need to document the world around them so that others can learn, Pina thought to herself, as she eyed the massive T-Rex display. Not even the scholars at the Imperial Halls of Learning made this much effort into understanding Falmart, not unless they wanted to anger certain faction in the Imperial Court or even the many religious bodies that held more power than they actually should. A few hours later, Mayui became the happiest girl countess in the world. As the 10-year-old child was able to acquire a somewhat large Pikachu plush that wore a deerstalker hat on its head, when the group visited FAO Schwartz. Basically, the Rolls-Royce toy stores. Surprisingly, the child was not the only one who bought themselves something from the iconic store. Atami brought his Riza a drone that had a built-in camera, while Tuka got a stuffed elephant she personally took a liking to. Even Williams and Puller bought themselves a few Hot Wheels for themselves that they would ship back home once they returned to Fort Ginza. "You are never too old to like Hot Wheels," Puller stated, as both himself and Williams pocketed several cars. Not too long after this stop, Rory Mercury found love, in the form of a wild gown that almost mirrored her oracle attire. The outfit itself sat in the window display of a store that specialized in otaku culture, and was of luxurious design. Apparently this was a costume that was based on an anime which had recently came out, and although the apostle took her role seriously, Rory could not help but to think that his particular dress would look super cute on her. So much for insulting her lord. Williams chuckled, as both Rory and Riza dragged the helpless Atami into the store to buy what they wanted. Eventually the group made it to the final stop on their grand tour of New York, the Liberty Island, and climbed up all the way to the Torch. "Wow," gasped Tuka, as she and others looked from the Torch platform onto Manhattan Island. "By Flair," muttered Pina, looking from the platform, "it's so big. Hardy wouldn't dare to follow me here to this goddess," chuckled Rory. "Rory, the Statue of Liberty isn't a goddess," said Centurion, "she was actually built as a symbol of America." "But I can hear her heartbeat," answered Rory. "Huh," surprised Williams, "or you're saying that Lady Liberty is alive?" "Come to think about it," said Centurion, "we once reanimated Lady Liberty in order to fight the evilly entity that once threatened New York." "Sir," said Eric, "you don't mean the Ghostbusters?" "The one and only," answered Centurion, "I've helped Dr. Egan Spengler to form the team together and fight Gozer the Gozerian. I've also helped them fight numerous other evil entities, like Cthulhu or Door of Apocalypse, so fighting Vigo the Carpathian was no strange for us." "Who was he?" asked Rory. "Vigo was once a cruel tyrant and sorcerer, who ruled the country of Moldavia with iron fist," answered Centurion. "He was also known as Prince Vigo von Homburg-Duchendorf, Scourge of Carpathia, Sorrow of Moldavia, Vigo the Carpathian, Vigo the Cruel, Vigo the Torturer, Vigo the Despised, Vigo the Unholy. He eventually died at the age of 105 in 1610, but not because of his old age. His people had led a rebellion and they tried and executed him in a manner that they saw fit for his rule. He was poisoned, shot, stabbed, hung, stretched, disemboweled, drawn and quartered." "Ouch," grumbled Scott, "talk about an exercise in overkill." "Yeah, and get this," said Centurion, just before his head died, he uttered this prophetic warning, "Death is but a door. Time is but a window. I'll be back." And he did, by possessing his own portrait, and gathered himself all the power of malice, evil and hatred in the city, which had become a psychokinetic slime in the sewers of New York. However, he needed a child in order for him to be reborn, so he's stolen a little boy named Oscar Barrett from his mother Diana. Fortunately, the Ghostbusters and I were able to stop him, but in order to do that, we used the positive version of Vigo's slime in order to reanimate Statue of Liberty and use it to assault the Museum of Art, where Vigo has made his headquarters. After we sprayed him with the positive slime, he was practically vanished from his own portrait, leaving no trace of his return. Wow, that was one hell of a battle you fought there, Commander, said Atami. So, what happened now to the Ghostbusters? Well, right now, they're out of business, said Centurion, since we've eliminated all the ghosts in New York. Egan Spengler now is a professor in university, teaching about paranormal stuff. Others also went to another jobs. But I'll bet, if the ghosts return, so will they. I think so too, sir, said Min. Well, I think, we're done with the New York. Yup, said Eric, time for us to go to sunny California. So we're finally gonna see your hometown, Sir Prime, asked Pina. Why not? Answered Centurion, let's go. It was a night, when their plane landed at Los Angeles International Airport. Like before, the natives of Falmart were surprised to see the bright lighted city, which others nicknamed, Angel City. As they drove through the city, Pina and her knights were shocked to see the tall buildings in downtown, especially the US Bank Tower. So this is where you live, Sir Prime? She asked. Well, not exactly, said Centurion. You see, living in such big city is quite dangerous for the man in my profession. Plus, there's also smog problem, caused by the cars constantly moving through the streets. That's why I live outside the city in Malibu. Malibu, gasped Eric, you mean, you live in Surfer Town of California? And with the famous beaches, including Surfrider Beach, said Williams. In Malibu's pier, with all his festivities, said Puller. You got it, answered Centurion. That's awesome, shouted the Marines. Why are these guys are so excited about Malibu? Asked Tomita. Don't you get it already? Shot back Shino. It's because Malibu is known as one of the best resort towns in California. Just you wait, if you go to one of those beaches, they can make the ones we got in Japan look like cheap waste. Well, I'm thrilled about that, Curry-chan, drawled Atami. So anyway, where we should stay, sir? Our place has already been picked up, answered Centurion, the Malibu Inn, one of the best hotels they've got here. All right, exclaimed Eric, that's practically at the Surfrider Beach. I can't wait for tomorrow to grab a surfboard and hang 10. Count me in as well, said Puller. Me too, said Williams. Well, you can count me in as well, said Michiru. I really need to practice my surfing skills. That goes double with me, said Haruka. Okay, you guys, smiled Centurion, settle down. You'll get your surfing later. Right now, we better get to our hotel and check in for the night. Sir Prime, asked Pina, why can't we go to your place? Yeah, said Rory, why so, Commander? Because my residence is a top secret location, answered Centurion. No one, but those, who close to my semicircle, are allowed to enter my home, otherwise, he'll be arrested for trespassing. Sounds like you really live in a dangerous life, Sir Prime, said Hamilton. You wouldn't believe, how dangerous, Miss Hamilton, answered Centurion. My enemies are constantly searching for the location of our base nearby Los Angeles or my residence. They've even formed a contract on my head. Yeah, surprised Atami, how much? $500 trillion, said Centurion. What? Gasped Eric, your head is worth $500 trillion. That's practically all the gold United States has, said Puller. And that's why I have no other choice but to stay in secret, answered Centurion. You must understand, that being the commander of the most powerful security and military organization in the world means, that you've made half of the world your enemies. They've been trying to kill me several times, sending various assassins, spies, bounty hunters to get me out of their way. Fortunately, my training and skills has allowed me to evade those threats. However, I also need to make sure that my security and secrecy are preserved. That's why I'm staying undercover, working here in order to disguise my real job. You're working? Asked Pina, looking confused. That's right, said Centurion. The best way for the commander of the world's top military organization to disappear is to blend in with the normal working people, so that way they'll be wasting their time to find me and the billions of other workers. That's right, said Haruka, we all have our cover jobs. I, for example, work in Texas as one of the local law enforcement service, the Texas Rangers. Wait a minute, said Eric, are you saying that you're working with the legendary Ranger Cordell Walker? The same, answered Haruka. He's been helping me and my partner Wolverine several times, with his partner Jim Trivette and veteran Ranger C.D. Parker, not to mention District Attorney Alex Cahill. We've been working together for almost 6 years for now as one team, fighting crime in Texas and sometime in Mexico's borders. Yeah, I've heard of him, said Atami. He's a real badass, alright. He sometimes helped Japan in fighting Yakuza clans. What about you, Setsuna-san? Asked Tomita. What cover do you have? Oh, I'm working at San Francisco's Criminal Investigations Department as their scientist, answered Setsuna. Spider's also working with me as my assistant. And you, Michiru-san? Asked Shino. What job you and Centurion-san have? Oh, our job is right here, smiled Michiru. We're working as Laws County lifeguards. What? Gasped Shino. You mean, you're working at Baywatch? What's Baywatch? Asked Lele. In the morning, the whole group went to the beach. All of them were dressed in lightweight clothing. So, this is the famous Malibu beach? Asked Lele. Yup, said Centurion, but that's only one of them. There's plenty more on the coast. By flare, gasped Pina. Look at the size of that sea. Sea, your highness, snorted Atami. That is called the Pacific Ocean, probably one of the biggest we have. And, your Japan is on the other side, Sir Atami? Asked Hamilton. That's right, answered Atami, just 4 days of sailing or day of flight. Why all these people are dressed so strange? Asked Bozes. Wasn't women aren't allowed on man's beaches? Maybe in your world, milady, answered Tomita, but in our, those rules have been long gone. Now, all the women are allowed to go to the beach with men by wearing those swimsuits. I wanna try one of them, exclaimed Panache, with eager look in her eyes. That sounds good to me, smiled Taylor. I think I can use a day or so on the beach. Say, said Rory, pointing to the lifeguard towers. What are those? Those are lifeguard towers, answered Michiru. You see those people in red swimsuits? Their job is to rescue the people who might get drowned or caught in danger, as well maintaining order and security on the beach. Kind of like pulse officers and medics, asked Tuka. Actually, they're more of a firefighters and security guards, answered Williams. They've been saving people from boat fire as well from those houses caught by fire. That's what they are, life guards, the guardians of life. Smiled Rory, I like that. So, this is where you're working undercover, Commander. You got it, smiled Centurion. Here I can use my skills to save people from drowning, as well helping the local police maintain peace and order. And the best part, no one would even dare to look for me at the beach. But there's no places to hide, said Mayui. How can you stay without anyone knowing you, Sir Prime? See those people, Countess, answered Centurion, pointing on the people at the beach. Try to pick at least a single lifeguard among them. Mayui looked, but couldn't find anyone, with all people practically has the same look. I can't see them, she said. That's because you're not from California, Countess, answered Centurion. You can only see the lifeguards on towers, but there's plenty more of them at the beach. Which makes it easy for me to blend in with those people. Looking for a single guy in such large crowd is like looking for a needle in a haystack. By the time you've finished checking the first 3/4 of the crowd, you'll be already tired, and the day will be over, with all the people gone home. Next day, there's probably even more, causing you to look for the person you seek with double timing. In other words, it's impossible. Sounds like a perfect camouflage, sir, said Min. You're here in the open, but at the same time no one can't see you. But I'll bet, several of the lifeguards are quite know where you are, sir, said Shino. They are, nodded Centurion, but I can trust them. They're my real friends. Yo, Commander, suddenly heard another voice. Centurion turned and see a man coming to him. Mitch, he exclaimed, shaking the man's hand, then hugging him. Good to see you. Guys, I'd like you to meet Mitch Buchanan, captain of the Los Angeles County Lifeguards, also known as Baywatch. Pleased to meet you, sir, said Scott, shaking Mitch's hand. My pleasure as well, said Mitch. Oh, and don't call me, sir. I'm not in service anymore. So, what you're doing here at Malibu? We came for a few days of staying, before coming back to Japan, replied Centurion, and since we're in Malibu, I thought it would be great time to take my friends to the beach. Sounds like a good idea, smiled Mitch. Well, gotta go. You guys enjoy yourselves. Bye. Bye, Mitch-san, said Michiru. As Mitch was walking away, Pina noticed something. Sir Prime, she said, does that mean, this man is your boss? That's right, answered Centurion, Mitch is my superior officer at Baywatch, however, he also knows well about my secret identity, so when I leave for a mission, he always covers my back by telling others that my absence is due to some several circumstances. But why did he said that he's not in service anymore, sir? Asked Tomita, does that means he's also a former GI? Joe. You got it, nodded Centurion. Prior to his service in Baywatch, Mitch was serving as one of the GI Joe SEALs for 6 years. He finally retired in 1985 and become a lifeguard, thus working his way to lieutenant position, then to captain. He's practically the commander Baywatch needs, and he always treated other lifeguards like his own children. And what's your position at Baywatch, sir? Asked Atami. Well, as one of the latees, said Centurion, I usually devise strategy and tactics during the rescue or other situations. I also work as the field commander with other lifeguards and coordinate their efforts to save the people from drowning. Plus, I also design their gear and vehicles they need to rescue the people. So, you might say, if Mitch Buchanan is the head of the Baywatch, then I'm its brain. Wow, that's a real high position you've got there, Commander, said Min. Well, said Eric, would you say, if we cut the chit-chat and join the crowd? I think, it's time for me to try out my surfing skills. I'd second that, said Haruka. Us too, said both Williams and Puller. Well, as they say in California, said Centurion, surf's up, dudes. It wasn't long, when the whole group were at the beach. For Pina and her knights, this was the first time they've tried swimsuits, as well for Mayui, Mamina, Persia, Tuka, Lele and Rory. While the girls, Setsuna, Scott, Min, Taylor and Atami's group was enjoying the beach, Centurion with Michiru and Haruka was competing against Eric, Williams and Puller in surfing match. The girls watched with excitement, as the men were literally riding the wave, going closer to the beach. Soon, Centurion's team came out on the beach happy that they've beaten Eric's team, much to Shino's dismay. Well, that's a bummer, she pouted, guess Eric and others wasn't so much of a hot boys at all. Hey, they're Marines, not beach bums, snorted Atami, give 'em some slack. Yeah, said Kurata, at least they've got their good time. Soon, Centurion and other men joined the rest of the group. So, how was it? Asked Rory. Man, it was awesome, exclaimed Eric, I haven't got my best wipeout in years. But isn't that dangerous? Asked Lele. Are you kidding? Laughed Eric, that's what this is all about in surfing, you ride the wave while avoiding to get washed away. And hey, if you get a wipeout, that's not hurt much. Not unless you'll get hit by your own surfboard, shot back Haruka. Ah, come on, Captain, snorted Eric, don't be such a bummer. By the way, Miss Kaio, you're surfing really great, almost like expert. Why, thank you, Mr. Hartman, smiled Michiru, but I've actually learned this skills from my friend, who's also from Japan. Really? Surprised Eric, I'd sure love to meet her. Oh, I'm afraid that's impossible, said Michiru, you see, she's part of an international of environmentalists, who helps the people to protect our planet from pollution. You mean, the Greenpeace, said Puller. No, of course not, smiled Michiru, it's more like a group of international youth, who's working by their own methods and funding. Sounds like a nice bunch of kids, said Scott, speaking of which, looks like we've got company. A blonde man in lifeguard shorts approached the group. Hey, Commander, he said, it's good to see you here. Cody, beamed Centurion, getting up and shaking his hand, it's good to see you as well, my friend. Everyone, say hello to Cody Madison, one of the few lifeguards, who knows about my secondary job here. He's a talented swimmer, who's once been trying to become an Olympian and participate in 1996 Olympics, but forced to withdraw that chance because of the injury he took during the rescue. Pleased to meet you, Mr. Madison, said Haruka, shaking his hand. Thank you, miss, answered Cody, so, I've heard you guys are in Malibu for a day or so. Yup, answered Centurion, soon, we'll be flying back to Japan, however, I thought, we could stop here for some nice R&R. Well, I hope you'll enjoy it, said Cody. Well, I gotta go, my job's calling. Sure, said Centurion, see ya, pal. Bye. Bye, guys, said Cody and took off running. He sure is a fine-looking man, said Hamilton. I'll bet, most of the women here are practically viewing him as their future husband. Well, chuckled Centurion, to tell you the truth, Cody is a sort of a women's magnet, thus making several women going to him. However, mostly their relations with him ended up in bad ways. However, I remember one woman, that was this close to become his woman of heart. Who is that, Sir Prime? Asked Boses. I'll show you, answered Centurion. He reached for his shirt and pulled out a photo from the pocket. Guys, I'd like you to meet a woman, that was practically the queen of the Baywatch, Casey Jean Parker, or CJ. Holy shit, gasped Eric, looking at the photo of a woman with slender body, large breast, blonde hair and blue eyes. What a babe. She's gorgeous, gasped out Pina. I've never seen a woman with such beauty, said Boses. Oh, wow, said Tuca, look at her hair. It's like natural gold. So this is the woman that man Cody Madison almost have as his bride, asked Rory. Exactly, said Centurion. I've met Casey Jean or CJ about several years ago, when Mitch has left the GI Joe and become a lifeguard. Back then, she was already a skilled lifeguard, good trained and well built. She was working as a senior lifeguard. Then, 2 years later, she left the Baywatch and become a kayak instructor in the mountains. I've also remember, that back then she had an affair with the guy named Larry, but it ended up in scandal, with him leaving her almost heartbroken. Then, in 1991, I went with Mitch and his son Hobie into the mountains, where Mitch's grandfather has disappeared. Turned out to be, that he has found the legendary treasure, the Golden Foot, but a bunch of gold-searching rift rafts and a corrupt sheriff has killed him. It was then we've met CJ, who allowed us to have fun in river rafting. During our leisure, the same claim jumpers and sheriff tried to kill our friends and CJ, but Mitch and I killed the 2 scoundrels and knocked out the sheriff, then rescue the others. That's when we offer CJ to go back to Baywatch, and she did. Sounds like you and that woman were quite close together, Commander, grinned Rory. Not exactly, said Centurion. You see, CJ known well about my love to Michiru, so she instead viewed me as her big brother, just like she saw Mitch as her father figure. She always seeked other romances, but unfortunately, her beauty turned out to be her curse as well. Almost her new boyfriend hasn't been able to stay long. John D. Court, Matt Brody and finally, Cody Madison. Like I said, she was this close to marry him, until she went to Mexico and met Enriquez Rodriguez, a local musician. They've married with each other, thus CJ now lives in Mexico. What a shame, mumbled Shino. I'd really wish that beautiful woman would marry that gorgeous hunk, like Cody. Oh well, she sighed, guess, you can't win them all. Guess not, said Centurion. Suddenly, they've heard cries for help. Centurion quickly turned and saw several people in the water, looked like drowning. Looks like those people got caught in a riptide, he said, then turned to others. Scott, you watch over the whole group and have them stay put. Michi and I handle this. Let's go, Michi. Ryakai, yes, sir, answered Michiru, and they both run to the water. Tell Mitch we have a code 16, people got caught in a riptide, shouted Centurion, passing over the tower, have him send back up and a rescue unit, stat. Got it, sir, answered female lifeguard, grabbing her phone, while Centurion and Michiru run into the sea and swim towards drowning people. Cody was also swimming to the people with several more lifeguards. Michiru swam to one of them and caught him from behind. Easy now, I've got ya, she said. Are there all people accounted? Shouted Centurion, while other lifeguards were picking up the people. There's one more, a woman, answered Cody, she must have been pulled underwater. I'll handle this, said Centurion, you get these people to the shore. Tell Mitch to have the CPR crew standing by, just in case. Got it, sir, answered Cody and started to help one of the victims to get to the shore, while Centurion dives below. Because of the foam, below the water was almost black as a night, so Centurion closed his eyes. He started to use his own mind to locate the human underwater and soon picked her up. He swam to her and grabbed her from behind. As he surfaced, he saw Mitch swimming to them. You okay? shouted Mitch. I'm fine, but the girl must have swallowed some water, answered Centurion. We better get her to shore and start CPR, before she dies. Right, let's go, said Mitch. Both he and Centurion grabbed the girl and took her to shore. As they reached the shore, Dave took the girl to other lifeguards and put her on the ground. April Jeminski, the woman from the tower Centurion passed earlier, kneeled before the girl's body, put her hand to her neck and her ear to her mouth. No pulse, no breathing, she said. Start the CPR, said Centurion. I'll do the heart massage, you'll do the internal breathing, April. Right, sir, said April, taking the girl's head. Ready. Here we go, said Centurion, starting to press his hands. 1 2 3 4 5, breath. On K, April breathed some air into the girl's mouth. 1 2 3 4 5, breath, continued Centurion, as he and April worked to save the girl's life. 1 2 3 4 5, breath. 1 2 3 4 5, breath. Suddenly, Lele's scepter touched the girl's head. April gasped to see this, then she turned to see Lele closing her eyes and chanting a spell. Then the girl's body was glowing with blue light, and a few minutes later, she coughed up some water and came to. She's all right, said Centurion. Thanks, Lele. You're welcome, Commander, answered Lele. Well, I'll be, said Mitch. Was that actually healing magic, miss? Yes, it was, answered Lele. Then, you must be that magician girl we saw on TV, exclaimed Cody. I am, answered Lele. My name is Lele Lelena. Well, Miss Lelena, said Mitch, on behalf of the Los Angeles County Lifeguards, as their captain, I thank you. Thank you, Mr. Buchanan, answered blushing Lele, as everyone applauded her. Like all good things, Centurion's and Falmart Vip's visit to America had come to an end, and it would be a visit they would remember for the rest of their lives. The Falmart natives had learned a lot about this world, how it worked and its history. They had also gotten some souvenirs for themselves to take home for themselves while in New York. Tuka had gotten a brand new mechanical hunting bow with arrows and of course, her suit which she used when speaking at the UN. Lele bought herself enough books to open her own library once she got back to Fort Ginza. There was just so much she wanted to know about the world Tommy and his people came from, and she wanted to know as much as she could. Hence the numerous history books she now carried, and the mage planned to translate every single one of them. Rory, of course, had the new dress she made Tommy buy for her, as well as a series of books she found interesting called Death Note, she found in the store as well. Even Pina and her knights got themselves some manga they found very interesting, though these were more blue nature and were not the type of thing meant for younger individuals. But despite this glorious find, Pina was still rather troubled. Her father had made a terrible mistake by crossing the gate, and the result was not only the Empire angered the ANF, but an entire world. The Imperial Army slaughtered thousands and took slaves from this world. An action that was seen as barbaric in this world and had angered their populations. The Empire had gotten itself into a war they could not possibly win, and the only thing keeping the ANF from utterly destroying her people was the fact they didn't want to. For now anyway. It was also clear to Pina that for the Sadaran people, the war was already lost. They just did not know it. The only question left to be answered was just how badly the Empire would be defeated. Would there even be an empire by the time it was all over? Pina remembered listening to Centurion, Scott, Tommy and Williams when they explained the relationship between Japan and the United States. How at one point they had gone to war after Japan had attacked a naval base, and just how badly the Japanese Empire was defeated once the US went on the offensive, winning the war and crippling Japan as a result. Now these two former adversaries were not only close allies today, but were now united against her nation for its actions. If Sadara and its people were to survive, then Pina would have to do everything she can to finally bring an end to this reckless war her father started, even if she has to go against her father to do it. More important than her family, the fate of the entire nation was on stake, and she knows that Centurion and his superiors would not hesitate from destroying the empire completely. As Centurion himself once stated, "Believe me, your highness, we're the people of our words. Once we've give it, we'll be true to it to the last letter. We've already destroyed several empires in our world, and yours fate will be no different. We did it before, and we will do it again, if your father does not submit to our demands." She also decided to make good on her promise to the presidents of the Big Three to locate every single person taken from Ginza and bring them back home. It was a task that was easier said than done, but with the fate of her people at stake, the princess would have to go the distance and do everything she could to keep her promise to the United Nations. That was Pina's only thought, just as VC-711 lifted off into the to begin its long journey back to Japan. As the VC-711 landed at the Yokota airbase, Centurion and his group disembarked the jet and went to the small building. "All right, listen up," he said to others, "right now, we've got one more task ahead of us, to get the VIPs back to Fulmart. However, before that, we need to deal with the jokers, who's already tried to kidnap our guests." "You think they would have bugged out while we were gone, sir?" asked Eric. "No, I don't think so," shook his head Centurion. "I know these people, they're not the kind of those who's given up on the opportunity they've got. Plus, their bosses are also not the kind of those who surrender when their enemies are flying away from the place they would return. They know that in order to get to Fulmart, we need to pass through gate at Ginza, so I'll bet that's exactly where they expect us to go, so they can ambush us." "So, what's the solution, sir?" asked Scott. "I've already worked out a plan of us luring our enemies into our own trap," answered Centurion. "It's in the rural hotel, Sankei, in Hakone nearby Tokyo, where we planned before to go for hot springs baths. It's located within the thick bamboo forest, nearby abandoned shrine. Right now, the forest has been stationed by several special forces teams from G.I. Joe, Japan, USA, China, and Russia. We've also allowed several of such information to slip into certain members of the Diet, who we've suspected in collaborating with the enemy." "I get it," said Atami. "We'll be acting as bait to lure our enemy into the forest, so that our boys and other guys play a little game of shoot and scoot." "That sounds good," said Taylor, "but what if that plan does not goes well, sir? You know the old saying, no perfect battle plan has survived the direct contact with the enemy." "Well, I've prepared a special trump card of my own," smiled Centurion, "the one that includes our special wild card." "Really?" surprised Min, "and what is that, sir?" "Sorry, I can't tell you now," smiled Centurion. "You know what they say, a good magician never reveals his tricks." "That's correct," said Lele. "Thank you," said Centurion. "Now then, here's the plan for the day. We split up in several groups, then mingle with the crowd of Tokyo, then after that we'll gather at Shinbuku Station to go the hotel. That way, the enemy wouldn't be able to find us before we'll go to Hakone." "Sounds good," said Scott. "If you don't mind, sir, I'll take Princess and her knights with Tomita and Taylor." "And I'll take Countess Mayui with her maids, Karada and Puller," said Setsuna. "That makes Riza, Rory, Lele and Tuka under my care and Michiru's," said Haruka. "Good," said Centurion. "I'll be in town gathering more information on our enemies. Speaking of which, Atami, Eric and Min, you've got an appointment of your own." "Yeah," said Atami, "I need to meet with one of my friends, King Taro. He's asked me to meet at the Tokyo Park. I've got message from my dad's friend, who calls himself Chaos," said Eric. "He said to meet me at Akibara. And I need to meet an old friend of mine, call sign, Ironside," said Min. "He want me to meet him at Tokyo Tower." "Okay," said Centurion, "we've got our plans for today. Now, let's split up and meet later the day at Shinbuku. The cars there will be waiting for us to take to Hakone. Now, let's move out." Several hours later, the group rejoined at Shinbuku Station. "So, how's your meeting goes with Kano?" asked Centurion to Atami. "He said that right now, everything's been set up at Hakone," answered Atami. "He'll be with Colonel Ryazaki from Japanese Tokusentai and General Keating at the Ministry of Defense to control the operation, Yamabushi." The mountain monk nodded. Centurion, "That's good. What about you, Min?" Ironside said that there's 3 groups in Hakone, said Min. "One is from Shatalu, the second is from Islamic Empire, and the third is directly from Cobra Empire. Looks like von Strucker is putting some real high pressure on his subordinates because of their last failure." "I wouldn't doubt it," snorted Centurion, "considering that we've literally slipped under his nose. He's probably hopping mad now. He knows that he's got one last chance, and if he fails, he's cooked. He'll be really angry after that." I thought so too, sir, said Min. Ironside also said that he left a special package for you, sir, at the hotel. It'll be necessary for you just in case, if things go hairy. That's good to hear, said Centurion. I'll check on it once we're in Hakone. What about you, Eric? Chaos sends his regards, sir, answered Eric. He told me that my father, who died several days ago, has been given a proper military funeral. He also mentioned that Langley's playing dirty, sir. Why am I not surprised, snorted Centurion. Those dipshits at CIA has been bungling their job since 1991. The whole structure of Donovan's Child is practically rotten to the core. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these guys would work for our enemies as well. I thought so too, sir, said Eric. By the way, Chaos also left you a package at the hotel, said it might become in handy. Good, said Centurion. Now, let's head for Hakone. Time for us to clean up a little bit. Hunter, be advised, we've picked up 3 heat signatures, 150 meters from your left. Enemy groups are Alpha 1, 2 and 3. Command, this is Hunter, confirming the group Alpha 1 and 2, ready to eliminate. Proceed. Rainbow, this is Command, proceed to point 3. Saber, you've got 2 heat signatures at your right. Rainbow here, we're copy. Moving to point 3 Tango. Saber here, spotted enemy group, Bravo. Eliminating the enemy. At the Japanese Ministry of Defense, General Keating, Japanese Minister of Defense Taro Kano and Colonel Ryazaki were watching the special teams proceeding with their operation. So far so good, said Kano. It looks like we've done our homework. Yes, but those are just advanced groups, answered Keating. The main forces will be coming much shortly, and they won't be taken lightly. That's all right, said Ryazaki. We've got enough reserves from our allies to keep those assholes for a long night. Or the allied teams are in position, asked Kano. Yes, Minister San, answered Ryazaki. They're waiting for code word to join the operation. Excellent, said Kano. And what about our guests? They're arriving at the hotel even as we speak, answered Ryazaki. Well, it's show time, said Keating. You better get me some coffee, gentlemen, it's gonna be a long night. Centurion opened the door and entered the hotel. He checked the rooms and lockers. All's clear, he said, we're safe. Come on, let's get undressed and get ready for a bath. As Rory was getting undressed, she felt something. What is it? Asked Shino. I felt like I've been watched, answered Rory. Is that our lieutenant? Growled Shino. Calm down, girls, said Haruka. Those are our special forces guys, who watch over the perimeter of hotel. They won't come here. As the girls reached the bath, they were in shock to see a large hot bath before them. How's the water from spring so hot? Exclaimed Tuka. By using the volcanoes underneath it to warming it up, Tuka-chan, answered Setsuna. I've never seen so much hot water before, said Lele. Well, you've never been in Japan hot springs before, Lele-chan, answered Michiru. This is incredible, muttered Hamilton, an indoor bathing pond, with so much hot water. Why didn't we achieve so much with all our magic? Maybe because your empire prefers to spend more gold on funding wars instead of its people, Hamilton-san, snorted Haruka. Hey, 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 shouted Kuribayashi, holding Rory, no bathing, until you've cleaned up first. Rules are rules. Let go off me, screamed Rory, I command you to let go off me. You can command to someone else, Rory, snorted Kuribayashi, rules are rules. Sir, report from the outside perimeter watch, said one of the operators. We've got several vans with armed men, stopping at the forest nearby hotel. This is it, said Keating, they've came. Send the code word to all our units, as well to our allies, the enemy has arrived. Proceed with the operation, Yamabushi. Yes, sir, answered the operator. Attention, all paladins. The Holy Grail has been threatened by Saracens. Repeat, the Holy Grail has been threatened by Saracens. All paladins, protect the Holy Grail with all your might. While having a shower, Rory felt once more that she's been watched. Your world sure has strange devices that watch over people, she said. That would be drones, answered Haruka, quite useful things, small but fast. They can watch constantly perimeters for hours, allowing to reduce the human fatigue. they can carry small cargo to the battlefront, and sometimes they can carry a weapon to support our troops. I really wish to explore one of those drones, said Lele. In due time, Lele-chan, smiled Setsuna. Speaking of which, said Pina, me and Bozes are used to sneak a peek for the men in their tents. Oh yeah, laughed Bozes, it sure was fun. Yar yar, snorted Shino. Meanwhile, Centurion and other men with Pikachu were already in their bath. Phew, sighed Itami, now this is a life. It sure is, replied Tomita. Come to think about it, said Eric, aren't you guys supposed to have familiar trips almost every time in your leisure? Nah, snorted Itami, the defense budget is short, and the room here costed more than 120 yens for the night. We're only lucky that they've let us stay for the night because the higher-ups pay for it. Well, you can't win them all, said Scott, speaking about which, where's cola? Right here, answered Centurion, taking few cans from the basket and throwing to others, have one on the house, men. Thanks, sir, answered the others. While at the female baths. So, said Haruka, I've been hearing that many of you girls were already starting to work on your intimate life. What do you mean, Haruka-san? Asked Tuka. Oh, I think I know, said Shino, she means that most of us already had picked up their boyfriends. For example, Bozes here has already fell in love with Tomita. Me, surprised blonde knight, what do you mean, Lady Shino? Oh, come on, Bozes, don't be such a stick in a mud, answered Pina, confess, you really love Tomita. Well, stammered Bozes, it's true, I do love Sir Tomita, but it's actually against our order rules, plus with pedigree and social status. Ah, Fuyon rules, snorted Pina, then came from behind Bozes, haven't you forgot that I'm the Grand Master of the Order, Bozes? And I say, you can. Really? Beamed Bozes, hugging Pina, thank you, Oni-sama, older sister. Well, that's interesting, commented Michiru. Speaking of which, asked Rory, Riza, you and Itami are quite loving couple. Oh yeah, about that, laughed Riza, well, we've practically been sweethearts ever since our childhood. We've went into school, where we got our passion for manga. Then, after that, he went into army, and I started work as manga writer. But even so, we've been helping each other in time of need. He helped me with his allowance money, and I helped him with his otaku hobby. I guess, that's how things work between us. And you really love him? Asked Rory. Of course I am, smiled Riza, it's just that too bad for now he's busy serving outside Japan, and I'm not allowed to see him. But I guess, that's the price of being a soldier, you have to do what needs to be done, and you have to sacrifice something in order to protect those who you love. Still, I always support him and behind him 100%. That's real good, Riza-san, said Tuka. By the way, said Shino, Michiru-san, I've been always wanted to know, how did a girl like you have a guy like Centurion, and yet you've still not married with each other? Oh, that, giggled Michiru, well, it's no big secret. You see, I was an exchange student from Japan to America. That's when I've met Centurion, who was also going into school despite his status as the government agent. He was a government agent, shocked Rory, and he was in school. That's right, said Michiru, he was always been smart, quite ahead of every student in school, while I wasn't that much smart as him. At time, we became friends, but sometimes rivals, because he was also a musician sort of, and I was a violinist, an artist and a sculptor. Then there was our passion of swimming. I remember that I've challenged all male swimmers in our school for competition against me, because I was really annoyed of their constant attempts to become my boyfriend. I've never liked been patronized, so I've challenged them all on the competition in swimming. And, you've beaten them? Asked Panache. Yup, smiled Michiru, I sure did. That is, until Centurion came. He was so fast, that I barely keep up with him. We swimmed 4 laps in different style, and yet he was practically going through it, like a swordfish. So, I've lost to him, but I didn't mind, he was quite suave in helping. But then one day I saw him climbing up the wall quite easily. He was practically scaling the wall, like a human fly. I foolishly decided to not let him beat me and climbed after him, but then, I've got scared of the heights. Then I've lost my footing and fell. And then Centurion did something really impossible, he closed his eyes and doves right after me. He catched me in the middle of air, then he helped me to climb up the wall with him. Wow, gasped Rory, how exciting. After that, he helped me with my shock by comforting me, continues Michiru, and during that, he kissed me in a forehead. That's when I've realized that he's become more than just a friend for me. And that's when you fell in love with each other, asked Shino. That's right, said Michiru. After that, I've returned to Japan, where I'd meet Haruka, but then Centurion also got transferred to Japan as well by UN. And that was the start of our combined career together as soldiers. We've been always together as one team, so when he formed Justice Hawks, then Shadow Warriors, it was no surprise that we've become part of his team. That sounds really great, Michiru, said Rory, but why then you didn't marry with each other? Surely, it would be much easier for you to fight your battles as husband and wife. Well, that's not how things would work with us, Rory-chan, answered Michiru. You see, both of us are dedicated to our duties as soldiers. We're determined to defeat the forces of evil, specifically, the Cobra Empire, and to save this world. Until we achieve it, our love life would have to wait. Ow, said Rory, I see. By the way, said Shino, you've said that you're afraid of the heights, Michiru-san. Then why are you go skydiving with him? Oh, that, smiled Michiru, well, falling from heights was always been my worst fear, so I've decided to do something about by taking diving lessons. Diving? Asked Panache, what's that? It's a sport, when a person dives from a height about 10 meters, answered Setsuna, and does several figures in the air, before he enters the water without a splash. Exactly, said Michiru, so, I've continued to diving, until I've realized it wasn't enough. That's why I've started to go high diving. You mean, cliff jumping, gasped Riza, but that's dangerous, Michiru-san. I know, answered Michiru, but that was the only way I could conquer my fear and finally join Kiro-chan on his missions. Fortunately for me, I've mastered this sport well, so I can now easily jump from the height of 21 meters and dive into the water safely. So, you might say, when every time I go jumping, I'm taking it as a new dive, that way I can jump without any fear. Wow, muttered Hamilton, you're sure quite fearless, Lady Kaio. Nonsense, answered Michiru, fear is something that is part of us. Without it, we would lose our basic instincts of survival. The best way for us to conquer our fear is to make it work for us. I understand, Lady Kaio, answered Pina. Back at the forest, the Special Forces groups were continued to engage with each other. I've got Group B8 and B9 eliminated. Hostile Group B7 retreating, Rainbow pursuing them. Group A retreating as well, but Group C is quite hard nut to crack. Requesting more backup to press on Group C. These guys sure doesn't do much of a job of cooperating with each other, said Kano, watching the whole combat on screen. Well, that's because these guys are from different masters, answered Keating. It's also obviously that they've got different orders about their targets. Maybe, said Ryazaki, but these guys are quite tenacious and keep on pushing to hotel. Despite the fact that they're different organizations, they always retreat, then attempt another push, then repeat the cycle. Well, we can't just sit here all night and let those FCKERS to do what they please, growled Kano. Our boys out there spending more ammo than during the whole goddamn Yugoslavia conflict. Plus, it also taking its toll to other operatives as well. Isn't that the time to call Centurion-san and have him use his special wild card? Asked Ryazaki. Not yet, answered Keating, let's wait for a moment, we need these guys to wear themselves out, before we can eliminate them. Back at the hotel, Centurion and others were at the girls' room, playing games, drinking, laughing, telling jokes with each other. But outside, the fight continues. Hostile Group A is now have more guys of theirs filled with lead than Christmas turkey. Group B is also have plenty of 300 deci-second, but keeps pushing. Same with Group C. They've probably have a lot those, who's one step in hell, but they quite persistent. Nearby, one of the groups inspecting the body of their enemy. Wow, this guy's good, said one of them, Cryptek's latest camo and everything. Kid stuff, snorted another, survival gamers are using this all the time, you can buy it in Akibara. Really? Well, let's see, who's we got. They turned his body and uses the light to see the face. Yup, said one of them, they're Arabians, alright. Must have come here straight from Afghanistan too. Whoa, I didn't know, Afghans had Arabians, said another. Obviously a merc, said the third, probably he's been paid at least by 1,000,000 yen by our course from his employers. Make that 10, said the first, contact the HQ and tell the brass what's going on. Soon, at the defense HQ. I see, said Kano, lowering the phone, Islamic Empire is in the game, gentlemen. Others are also been identified, Cobra and Shadaloo. Looks like Bison and Von Strucker are having themselves a little competition from the third party. But wasn't both Shadaloo and Islamic Empire were supposed to be part of Cobra Empire, asked Ryazaki. Well, apparently, the Islamic Empire is after Rory Mercury, said Keating. They've heard about her status as demi-goddess and consider her as Shaden. That's why they're so determined to reach Sankei and Cobra and Shadaloo. For Shadaloo, they've seemed to also want to have Rory, but this time alive. Bison obviously want to know more of her capabilities, so that he would become a god himself. As for Cobra, they've want the Falmart as the source of power for their empire. With rich resources and raw materials, Cobra could easily become supreme power over other countries, like China, Russia and USA. That way, they'll be easily matched to the ANF. So, what's our solution, Keating-san? It's time for us to use our secret weapon, said Keating, taking his cell phone. If those guys want Rory Mercury, well, why not we oblige them? At the hotel, Pikachu brings Centurion his cell phone. Centurion took it and listened. I see, he said. Joshua, I'll call you in a few moments, I need to check things out with our crew. He then hung up the phone and turned to others. Problems, Commander? Asked Haruka. Stakes has just went up, answered Centurion. We've got 3 enemy groups in the forest, and they're after the VIPs, mostly Rory. Me? Surprised Rory, why me? What's the snafu, sir? Asked Scott. According to Keating, there's 3 groups from Cobra, Shadaloo and Islamic Empire, ASN word Centurion, but it seems that they've all after separated objectives. While Cobra is after our VIPs to learn about the secret of the gate, Shadaloo and Islamic Empire are after Rory Mercury, but again, their goals are different. While Shadaloo is after Rory to bring her to their boss Bison, Islamic Empire is want to kill Rory, whom they believe to be the daughter of Shaden, or the devil. That's just ridiculous, protested Pina. Rory Mercury is an apostle of Emroy, god of war. I know that, answered Centurion, we know that, and even they know that, but the trouble is, your highness, is that we're dealing with the fanatics, who's determined to put the ideals of Islam anywhere. They call this a jihad, or holy war, but in reality, the jihad is a war, when all Muslims are fighting against their common enemy, while what those guys are doing is Gasavoth, the war against infidels. And another thing you should know, Islam forbids suicide by the Shariat law, according to which a suicider will be sentenced to Shaden for eternal torture, but the Islamists have perverted that law into allowing their fanatics to blow themselves up with their victims, usually innocent women and children, which is also forbidden by Islam. In other words, they're just sectants, stated Rory. Well, that's fine by me, my lord does not accept suiciders and fanatics. I think I shall go out and give them a few lessons of my own. You mean, we go, Rory, answered Centurion, haven't you forgotten, that we're a team? If you're going after those jihadists, I'll go with you. I would appreciate that, smiled Rory. What about us, sir? Asked Eric. You will remain here, answered Centurion, under command by Scott and Setsuna, and do not leave the hotel. Rory and I will handle this ourselves. He then picked up his phone and dialed to Keating. General, he said, it's settled. You'll send the disinformation we've planted to make those terrorists look for us at point B. Rory and I will be there waiting for them. Yes, just 2 of us. No, I don't want any of our guys to enter for, otherwise they'll might get caught in a crossfire. Yes, that's right, tell them to stay about 100 meters from the point B and do not approach. Yes, that's right. Thanks, Joshua. Centurion out. He turned off the phone and get up. Time to unpack our special packages, he said, let's go. As they've reached one of the rooms, Min opened one of the packages and released from it 2 TAC-V suits. Excellent, said Centurion, these stealth suits will help us to fight those terrorists on equal ground. He then throwed one of the suits to Rory, this one's your size. Put it on, we can't risk your apostle clothing to be stained with blood. Okay, as you wish, answered Rory, putting on her suit. Then Min handed to Centurion Honey Badger rifle with suppressor and multi-targeting scope. Centurion checked it and loaded. Excellent, he said, 5, 56x45 caliber rounds with special low-powered gunpowder. These puppies will kill anyone about a few meters, considering that we'll be doing this in close range. Then, Eric handed to Centurion FN57 Sopmod handgun with suppressor and tactical light. Centurion checked the gun and put into his holster. Okay, he said, now, remember your job, you guys, you stay here with Scott and Setsuna and keep our guests safe. Rory and I will handle this. Okay, sir, said Eric, rock 'em and sock 'em for us. You got it, Marine, chuckled Centurion, ready, Rory-chan. Ready, Commander, smiled Rory, holding her unpacked halberd. Let's go night hunting, said Centurion, cocking his rifle. Scott opened the door, and both Centurion and Rory run out from and went into the woods. They've hopped on the trees and start hopping on them from one to another. Chapter 23, Night Battle and Return to Falmart. At the forest, Shadaloo Agent Chuck was busy shooting his rifle, while running. Goddammit, it's an ambush, shouted another agent, firing his rifle. Ramirez, stop shooting, yelled Chuck, but it was too late, as Ramirez's head was been shot. Then several bullets passed Chuck's head. Shit, he cursed, pull back. Goddammit, it's not just those FC King Japanese we're dealing here, but also those guys from Delta Force and G.I. Joe, Ghost Recon, 4th Echelon, and Rainbow. Add to this those Russian Spetsnaz and Chinese Golden Dragons, and we're talking one serious ambush. Fuck, what a lark. Groups A6 and A10 are pulling back to southwest. Here's the bear, I'm heading to the swamp. Dragon here, we're also heading for the swamp. Shit, cursed Heidegger, another Shadaloo agent, Tanaka and Kim's teams are dead. Fuck, cursed Chuck, that's the worst mission we've participated now. Chuck's frustration was quite easily to understand. As their group arrived of the hot springs, they've quickly run into Japanese Special Ops team and other big three countries teams, not to mention the G.I. Joe team as well, who secured the perimeter around the spa. Also, due to Japan's strict searching policy, the gear of the Shadaloo team was been discovered and confiscated, and they've been forced to buy their new gear at Airsoft shop in Ahibara and purchase guns from the local black market. Because of that, the Shadaloo team was now in great disadvantage compared to their opponents, who used the latest gear and technology to overwhelm their enemies. Not to mention, that they've also underestimated the Japanese Special Forces, forgetting that several US Special Forces teams, like Delta Force, MARSOG and US Navy SEALs were constantly training their Japanese allies, same like Itami, who was from Tokusentai himself. And now, the Japanese have put all their training to the test against the real enemy. Some might say, that this was their exam, and they've passed it with flying colors. These guys are really starting to get on my nerves, growled Chuck. I thought, they're freaking amateurs, yet I can't even kill one of them. And I thought, those Deltas were tough. Quiet, Chuck, said Heidegger, let's form up and go for that hotel, we've still got our orders. Crap, shouted another agent, Goldman, Mike's dead. Killed by a headshot. We gotta get outta here, said Chuck, we've already lost 70% of our team, and we didn't get closer to that hotel. Are you nuts? Shot back Heidegger, you wanna go back and face Bison's wrath. I'd rather have eaten hot coal instead of meeting our boss, when he's in a bad mood. Saber here, in position. Hunter, in position. Bravo here, in position. Rainbow here, in position. Cell here, in position. Bear, in position. Dragon, in position. Attention, all paladins. The Grail is moving towards the sanctuary. Repeat, the Grail is moving towards the sanctuary. All paladins, proceed to point B and stay in position. Under any circumstances, you are not allowed to engage your enemy. Repeat, do not engage your enemy. Maintain the watch of the inner perimeter and do not enter it, over. Hunter here, understood. Change of orders acknowledged, proceeding to point B immediately. Saber here, understood. Proceeding to point B. Bravo understood, proceeds to point B. Rainbow understood, proceeds to point B. Cell here, proceeds to point B. Bear here, heading to point B. Dragon here, proceeds to point B. We're in luck, said Heidegger, listening to his earpiece. According to our mole, the targets are heading to the old shrine, where their safe house is located. It seemed that some of them has finally lost their nerves and decided to relocate their guests to safety. This is our chance to finally make the big score and win this game. What? Gasped Goldman, or you're out of your mind. We've lost almost half of our unit, and now you're saying that we can still win this shit. Shut up, Goldman, barked Heidegger. One more outburst, like that, and I'll have your ass shot. Now, let's move. We better hurry, before those Japanese and their buddies know that we've discovered their trick and head there to secure the safe house. Move it, you jokers. As the Shadaloo team headed to supposed location of the safe house, they didn't know is that the other teams from Cobra and Islamic Empire also received the same news. The answer was real easy. PSIA and 4th Echelon has uncovered the traitor within Diet and used him to supply the false information to his masters. And it's just so happened that this traitor was working for 3 organizations at once, all because he was too greedy. But as they say, greed is the main weakness, and that has given away his position to PSIA and 4th Echelon. And now, all 3 teams didn't know is that they all heading right into a trap. As they all approach the shrine, they've startled to find each other. Shit, cursed Heidegger, as he and his team were taking their defensive position. What are you guys doing here? We're here on orders of Supreme Cobra Commander, answered Cobra Team Leader Tarantula. And we're here to kill the Shaden Witch, Rory Mercury, said Salah, leader of Islamic Liberation Army Isla team. Did someone mention me? Suddenly chimed another voice, making everyone to look in shock. The door opened, and Rory leapt out from it. Hey, boys, she smiled, didn't anybody tell you that it's not nice to enter someone's territory with weapons? It's the unbeliever, shouted Salah, kill her. Fuck you, Islamist, she's going with us, yelled Heidegger. Rory Mercury, in the name of our leader Bison, we order you to come with us. Sorry, wrong answer, chuckled Rory, as an apostle of Emroy, I go where I want. And I do not intend to meet your boss Bison, he's not my type. You blasphemer, screamed Salah, how dare you desecrate the name of Allah with your false god? False god? Snorted Rory, excuse me, Mr. Islamist, but I don't think you're getting the point. I've come from the different world with different gods. We do not recognize your Allah nor your Prophet Muhammad. As they say in your world, your rules does not rule in our house. For this, we'll cut your head, which, yelled Salah, and then, once we go into your world, we'll destroy every temple of yours, as well other paganists' temple, until only the mosques of Allah reign in your blasphemer land. Silence, you stupid bigots, barked Heidegger, we've got our orders from Bison, who wants her alive. Never, yelled Salah, the bitch dies here. Never mind that, said Tarantula, we've got other targets, where are Princess Pina and other guests? I'm afraid, you've been duped, boys, suddenly heard another voice. Everyone, except Rory, who grins by hearing this voice, looked around in terror. It's him, whispered Tarantula. The American devil, growled Salah. The secondary heir of Hokuto Shinken, said Heidegger, where are you, Centurion? I'm everywhere, answered Centurion's voice, you gentlemen didn't know, but the real guests are still in Hotel Sankei, where they're safe. We've deliberately allowed you to have this false information to lure you here, to this shrine. It's an ambush, shouted Heidegger. Those blasted Japanese tricked us, yelled Chuck. Now, they've surrounded us, like rats, screamed Goldman. Oh, but you're wrong about that, gentlemen, answered Centurion's voice. You see, my men are been ordered to only watch the events from outside the perimeter. They won't shoot anyone inside it, but they'll shoot anyone who tries to escape. Now, here's how things work out. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. Either you lower your weapons and surrender, or Rory and I will make a ratatouille salad out of you. Never, shouted Salad, it'll take more than some American devil and the Shaden Witch to stop fighters of Allah. Cobra will never surrender, shouted Tarantula. Our master Bison will kill us, if we fail him, shouted Heidegger, so, we will kill you. Rory then laughed. Well, that's good, she said, because I would enjoy to kill you all. Die, witch, roared Salad, firing his gun, but Rory dodged it and leapt from the stone, slicing her opponents in the process. "Holy shit," screamed Heidegger. "Allah Akbar," shouted Salah, as he and his men opened fire. "Cobra," shouted Tarantula, opened fire as well. Soon, all sides were opened their fire on each other, as well on Rory, who attacked the Shatalu team. "Sheet," shouted Heidegger, "cover fire." "Die, Islamic pigs," shouted Chuck, firing his gun at Isla troopers. The teams then run for cover, while at the same time keep firing on each other. "Fuck," shouted Chuck, hitting his shoulder on the rock, "there's too many obstacles here." Rory then attacked her targets mercilessly, cutting them down to pieces and beating them with her halberd. "What happened?" shouted the voice in Chuck's radio, "what's going on?" "We've been tricked," shouted back Chuck, "we've been lured into a trap. Isla and Cobra are also here, after the same targets. The mission has failed. Repeat, the mission has failed. Or you've been ambushed by Japanese. No, it's that blasted Centurion again. And he's got that girl too, Rory Mercury. They're slaughtering all enemy forces." What? But it was then his head was been shot, and Chuck was been silenced forever. "Six, respond," shouted the voice, "Six, respond. Goddammit, what the fuck's going on?" "Shit," shouted Goldman, "we're boxed in. It's like the whole fucking hell broke loose." "Damn it," shouted Heidegger, firing his gun at Rory, "fuck you, monster." "Heidegger, we better get outta here," shouted Goldman. "Behind you," screamed Heidegger. But it was too late, as Rory swinged her halberd, killing Goldman. "Damn you, monster," yelled Heidegger, firing at Rory, but she instead blocked his bullets with her halberd, then she swinged, tossing Heidegger away. When he commented too, he suddenly realized that he's missing his right hand. "Die, traitor," yelled Tarantula, firing his gun at Heidegger. "Fuck you," shouted Heidegger, reaching for his PM pistol, then firing it and killing Tarantula. "Damn it. Damn it. Damn it all to hell." Then, the gun clicked empty, and Heidegger finally closed his eyes forever. "Now, you itch," growled Salah, putting out his knife, "I will avenge my brothers in the name of Allah." "I don't think so," suddenly heard another voice, and Salah felt it, a gun pressed to his head. Next moment, a shot ringed out, and his body slumped on the ground, dead. Centurion was standing at Salah's body with both his honey badger and 5.7 smoking. He then looked at the Rory, who sighed happily, enjoying the afterglow of the battle. "Holy shit," gasped Ferguson, looking at Rory, "remind me to never piss her off." "I'd used to watch this in one of Atami's manga," said Saber, "but this." In the defense center, Kano, Ryazaki and Keating were watching the whole event with awe. "So, this is Rory Mercury," said Keating. "I remember reading of the report on her actions during the battle for Italica, but it looks like she's more tougher than we thought." "You know, if she's a demi-goddess," lamented Kano, "could she also put a stone mask and suck blood?" "Don't be ridiculous," snorted Keating, "she's not one of your Japanese folk story demon. However, I can understand why Bison was after her. With such strength, he would become unstoppable. Maybe there's a lot of good potential in that woman as well. But for now, send out our cleaning crew and make sure that the police didn't get involved. We don't need much of a fuss right now." "Understood," said Ryazaki, then picked up the phone. "All units, proceed with Action 3. Back at the shrine, Centurion walked to Rory and saw her body regenerating, spilling out the bullets. "Don't worry," she said, "bullets may be cute, but they can't hurt me." "I know, ASN word Centurion, after all, you are a demi-goddess, Rory. But right now, would you say, if we go back to hotel, clean up and get some sleep? We'll be going back to Falmart tomorrow, you know." "I know," smiled Rory, "still, it was quite a nice experience here." "Well, shall we run? I'll race you to the hotel." "You're on," said Centurion, and they've run to the hotel. In the morning, the group was all woken up and after a breakfast, left the hotel. The suits Centurion and Rory wore that night, as well Honey Badger and 5.7 were already been disposed of as a precaution of safety. Then, the group got into their cars and went to Yokosuka Naval Base. Nearby the base, CIA agent Graham was watching their arrival, when suddenly Komikado approached him. "Hey, Graham," he said, "nice to see you again." "What are you doing here, Komikado?" grumbled Graham, I'm kind of busy here. Ah, yes, by watching your American citizens coming to the base, said Komikado. Look, I know, I shouldn't interfere with your business here, but I do have some duties to the people who pay my salary. And I do believe, someone here wanna have a word with you. Huh, surprised Graham. Next moment, the agent next to him was been knocked out, and Eric pinned Graham's body to the car he was standing next to it. Wah, wheezed Graham, what are you doing? Next time you assholes babbles about my vacation in Japan, growled Eric, do me a favor and shoot your fucking head off, Graham. Have you forgotten what country you're served to? Wheezed Graham, you're a Marine, for fuck's sake. That's right, barked Eric, first I'm a Marine. And I'm also an American. And if you dare to question my loyalty to my country and my duty, I'll shovel that fathead of yours into your stupid ass. You've almost botched up our attempts to put a big push in our war with the Empire, as well an attempt to start any relations with those who seek peace there. All for what? For some fat-ass politician or business jerk-off or industry magnate to gain more dollars on funding any attempt to escalate chaos in Falmart. Fuck you, jarhead, muttered Graham. Eric then punched him in the gut, causing Graham to collapse on the ground. Don't you dare again to interfere with my duty, spat Eric. You come to my friends again, and I'll kill you, you get me? Your ass is grass, and I'm the fucking Landowner. Am I coming across loud and clear, Agent Graham? He then turned and walked away. Thanks, Komikado, he said, while walking to the gates of the base. Anytime, Gov Lieutenant Governor, smiled Komikado. This whole operation was a waste of time, said Supreme Cobra Commander in his secret headquarters. Our entire Japanese force was been wiped out. The security of the gate will now be even tighter, and worst of all, some of our allies were after their own personal goals. I shall not allow this to continue. What is then your orders, our master, said Neo Cobra Commander. Have all those, who survived the Battle of Hakone, eliminated, ordered Supreme Cobra Commander. Failure does not tolerate in Cobra Empire. I want also the Padishah of Islamic Empire to be executed for betrayal. Because of his fanatism, our mission was a tremendous failure. Find a new Padishah, who's more loyal to our cause. I will personally deal with Bison. And I don't want any more attempts to seize the gate. That thing does not worth our attention. But what about the resources in Special Region? Said Destro, surely you understand the great potential of them, Supreme Cobra Commander. Forget about the Special Region, spat Supreme Cobra Commander, that place is just a dead end, with nothing for us to gain. Centurion and his forces are too busy there fighting their own war in Sandbox. If that's so, then we shall use this to our advantage. While he's busy in that Special Region, we shall use that time to build our forces and be ready for the world conquest by next year. Centurion is too soft with those primitives. Instead of blitzing to the Sidera, he prefers to talk with him. The fool. When he'll ever understand that the true victor has only one option, he need to crush his opponents, his fist of steel. By the time they'll finish with that empire, it'll be too late for them to finally be ready for our attack, so that we shall defeat G.I. Joe and this so-called allied nations forces alliance with ease. But what if Centurion will manages to defeat the empire real soon? Asked Baroness. His forces will be really strong after that. Nonsense, snorted Supreme Cobra Commander. He'll only waste human power there, and after that, they'll come back all exhausted. Plus, we can also strike within this alliance and destroy them from within. Soon, Centurion's alliance will nothing more than memory, and then Cobra Empire will rule supreme over this planet. He then laughed madly, joined by others next to him. I trust your tour went well, Your Highness, Colonel Mihara asked solicitously as she and Lady Octavia greeted Pina and the others. Yes, it was very interesting, answered Pina. It also underscores that I need to return home at the earliest practicable time so as to start work on bringing a conclusion to this war. Of course, Your Highness, replied Mihara, then paused. I would like to discuss a request from my government if it is convenient. Pina nodded. Of course, after supper, I will be holding council with my aides and leading ladies. Join us and we can discuss it then. If that is acceptable. Perfectly, Your Highness, agreed Mihara. This would also provide Mihara the opportunity to inform Her Highness of other, somewhat disturbing news. Indeed, hours later, Pina County Lotta was quite disturbed and yelling loudly indeed. He did what? Pina slammed her palms down on the table as she literally jumped from her seat in anger. Colonel Mihara calmly regarded Pina's look of absolute fury and waited a moment as it washed past before repeating the news. Whether by design as part of a campaign of scorched earth or the fallout of the destruction of the Imperial and Allied armies at Alnus, a number of settlements between Alnus and Sedera have been completely destroyed. Our people have had encounters with apparent Imperial units in several villages and have also encountered refugees from destroyed villages and settlements. We, of course, will do our best to provide relief for any refugees that find their way to Alnus. She carefully refrained from mentioning that while manageable for now, ANF Command was concerned about increasing strain on their logistical tether. In response, patrols had been stepped up, but it was only a first step. Mihara studied Her Highness as Pina frowned and considered the situation. The threat of roving bands of brigands, even some formerly Imperial troops turned to looting and plundering, was bad enough as she had learned at Italica, but the thought that this might be part of a deliberate policy by her father chilled her. Pina gnashed her teeth in fury. Damn it, father, she thought, these people aren't like any army the Empire has ever faced. They don't need our food or our wells. They can probably strike Sedera any time they choose. We're only making enemies of our own people. Odd that only a few days ago, she would have seen her father's strategy as eminently sensible. And how narrow her own vision had been. Strange how one of the first things she saw upon having her eyes opened was how completely blind she had been. Silently, she prayed that this had not been her father's will, but she could not dismiss the thought either. Though she loved her father dearly, she knew he could be extremely ruthless if he had to be. Some of the Sateran noble ladies in attendance responded to the news with clearly horrified looks. They had lands in that region and these were certainly under possible threat. Lady Octavia herself remained impassive despite the fact that both her husband's lands and the estate of her late father lay in this area. There was nothing to be done for it, they would be spared or not, though she would ask her son if he could at least check on them and make sure their people were safe. Pina frowned. It did not matter so much who was responsible. Only that she had a duty to act. She turned to her knight commanders. Lady Panache, when we return to Italica, the company of the White Rose will remain there with our footmen. I want mounted patrols of the main roads and of the local villages and estates. Under my own authority as Princess of the Imperial Line, all local garrisons will be at your disposal to protect these villages and lands. Anyone caught looting will be put to the sword. I will also leave you half of the company of the Red Rose. The remainder along with the company of the Yellow Rose will accompany me back to Sedera. Yes, Your Highness, bowed Panache, but what if we encounter Imperial troops under orders from His Imperial Majesty? In theory, in that event, you would have no choice but to stand down. Answered Pina. However, even if my father gave an order to burn any such villages and estates, father would never actually sign such an order. He's not about to make unneeded enemies in the Senate or among the merchant guilds by pinning his name to possibly destroying their lands or goods and profits. Therefore, in the absence of a signed order from the Emperor himself, you will have my signed orders to request compliance from all Imperial forces and to prevent brigands, pirates, or marauders of any sort from doing harm to Imperial lives and property. Yes, Princess, replied Panache, as a swelling of pride for her princess and the order filled her heart. Pina then turned to the representative of the Allied forces among them. Colonel Mihara. In accordance with the agreement between myself and the United Nations, I humbly request aid and support in protecting and securing the well-being of the city of Italica and its surrounding area. Over the next few hours, plans were offered, considered, and revised as they discussed the particulars of the repatriation of Sateran civilians, the protection of Italica and the surrounding region under the Italica Agreement and other assorted matters. There was a small but quantifiable risk that if her father or others learned of this in the current political climate in Sedera, she could be declared a traitor and possibly even face execution. She believed that hopefully, it would show the people of this world a more positive face for the Empire. The same day, Atami and Taylor were summoned to Colonel Mihara's office. You gentlemen have new orders, she told them. Lieutenant Atami, 3rd Rakan will join Her Imperial Highness and escort Ambassador Russell and Mr. Sugawara to Italica. From there, the princess and her retainers will discreetly escort our diplomats the rest of the way to Sidera, where Princess Pina has graciously offered her personal palace and estate to house our diplomatic mission. Japanese public security personnel, as well as Department of State security agents and a marine security team, would be sent in unobtrusively as soon as practicable. This detail had been a point of debate between Japanese and American officials. The Japanese had wanted to be less conspicuous with the presence of their security detail in the imperial capital. The American government decided, however, that a proper security detachment was non-negotiable. While no one wished to be so blatant as to endanger Princess Pina's survival in either the literal or political sense, hard experience dictated that appropriate security measures would be taken. Vice Minister Shirayuri will arrive sometime after that point. Mihara then turned to Taylor. Lieutenant Taylor, Her Imperial Highness has given permission for a scientific mission to set up in Italica. As you have established a good rapport with Princess Pina and her senior commanders, particularly Lady Panache, who will be Her Highness's representative in Italica, you will accompany the rest of 3rd Recon to Italica and then act as our liaison once the science team arrives. She smiled lightly. And, as many of the Sateran non-combatants will be returning to the Empire, I will be assigning Senior Chief Richardson and a few experienced hands to assist you. Also, as Princess Pina's knights will be expanding their patrols in the area, Her Highness has agreed that an ANF base called Camp Formal will be stationed nearby Italica to assist in the local defenses. Yes, ma'am. You are dismissed. Are you certain you won't come back with us? Panache asked her brother finally as Princess Pina's party and the first group of Sateran repatriates made ready to leave for the gate. Tiberius shook his head as he gave his sister a small smile. I don't think that's a good idea. Father wouldn't understand. Not yet anyway. He turned to look at Lucilla, who squeezed his hand. Besides, this is where I need to be right now. He handed a letter to Panache. Could you make sure Mother gets this? I will take care of it personally, Panache promised. Thank you. Tell Mother I love her. Of course. Be safe, Tiberius told her. I'll do my best. In the meantime, as her daughter looked after Tiberius, Lady Octavia discussed last-minute details with her son. I've marked the locations of the major estates on this map. If you could at least inquire about them, it would be very helpful for those contemplating a return to the Empire. As Lady Agrippina's estate lies to the south and east of Alnus, it is likely undamaged and therefore Lady Agrippina will be returning to the Empire today. I entrust her safe passage into your care. The fair-skinned noblewoman brushed a lock of honey-blonde hair from her face and bowed her head deferentially. My lord. Taylor returned the gesture. My lady. There was a twinkle of anticipation in Agrippina's eyes and Taylor was happy that he was not the object of the woman's thoughts as she prepared to return to her lands. Lady Octavia had taken a proud woman broken less by capture and more by betrayal and reforged her with cold purpose, and now the hour of her retribution drew near. Also, Octavia gestured to one of her house retainers. A warrior bunny with a light cream coat and weak blonde hair stepped forward. Taylor recognized her as Aurelia. I have discussed this with your commanders. As my heir, Aurelia will accompany you henceforth. I am certain you will find her useful. She addressed the warrior bunny with a smile. Obey him as you would me. We leave our heir in your care. Aurelia bowed. As you will, my lady, a touch of pride and satisfaction showing in her voice. She turned to Taylor. As you will, my lord, she said with pride as Octavia put a hand up to cover her smirk. Taylor shook his head and glanced over at Chief Richardson. Are we ready to roll, Chief? That we are, sir. Taylor looked at Atami and Princess Pina. Your Highness, shall we go home? Compared to the party which had accompanied her to Tokyo, the procession which now joined the imperial princess back through the gate was a veritable triumph. In a way, there was as much truth as irony in that statement, for in coming to Tokyo, Pina County Lada had secured more of a victory than the combined armies of the Empire and its allies had been able to manage. In all, some 500 imperial citizens had elected to be repatriated in this first group. Some of these intended to remain at the Alnus settlement, but most would continue on to Italica and then to their respective homes across the Empire. Joining them would be the first contingent of the Gate Academic Mission, a collection of scientists and scholars ranging from geologists to sociologists, linguists to zoologists, and astronomers to historians. Trucks filled with equipment and supplies and with military-assigned drivers joined the column of horses and wagons that proceeded through the gate. And most of this mess is now my responsibility. William Taylor sighed, scowling as Atami laughed. How do you figure? Simple. After escorting the Lady Agrippina home and hoping she doesn't find her spouse dwelling within, I take up residence as liaison in Italica. I get to make sure the science jockeys heading there are taken care of and kept happy, while at the same time making sure they don't overstep their bounds and create an incident of some sort. At the same time, as Pina's Knights will be conducting patrols out of Italica, I have to make sure that Lady Panache and our people are on the same page so there isn't another incident like what happened to us. You're the best person for the job, Atami replied nonchalantly. I highly doubt it. Better you than me anyway, Atami countered. Too much responsibility. I hate you, Taylor replied. At least he wasn't entirely alone in his new posting, he reflected. With the first reduction in the population of detainees in her care, Colonel Mihara had reassigned Senior Chief Richardson and a number of other personnel to Italica with Taylor. This included Corporal Nakamura, who had been only half-jokingly dubbed the disciple of death by her squadmates. What particularly disturbed Taylor about this is that Nakamura had reported to him hefting her own naginata, at which time she confirmed her status as a practitioner of Naginata Jutsu. Of course, this didn't account for Aurelia. The warrior bunny was fast becoming a more constant companion than Taylor's own shadow. Fortunately, she was quick to grasp the boundaries required by operational security even if her understanding of personal boundaries was a bit different from Taylor's. She's what? Colonel Mihara asked in surprise as she and Lady Octavia watched the convoy get underway. Octavia smiled wryly. I said that Aurelia is my husband's oldest daughter, born to Vidilia, my husband's favorite concubine. I imagine that would be awkward, Mihara told her. Only in that as non-humans, Vidilia, and Aurelia not allowed the rights of marriage as recognized under imperial law. Under those same laws, Aurelia cannot claim any rights of inheritance from Germanicus. The irony is not lost on me that I can adopt a foreigner and since he is human, he can inherit my father's titles but because of her heritage, Aurelia is denied the same rights. And I'm suspecting that you had something very specific in mind when you assigned Aurelia to be Taylor's minder, replied Mihara. Of course, Octavia admitted. While I understand your culture has a different view on such things, the title of concubine is not a dirty word in our society. Were something to develop between them, I would be quite happy. It was my impression that you were hoping something would spark between Mr. Taylor and Lady Panache. I still am. I've noticed how they've been looking at each other when they didn't think anyone was watching. And their marriage would cement him in the upper reaches of our society. Panache's mother is a good and sensible woman, so I expect she too would quickly see the advantages of such a union. Even if the light in her daughter's eyes wasn't more than enough, Octavia answered, but in our culture, the two situations would not be viewed as mutually excluding. My husband has been with Vidilia almost as long as he has been with me. We all understand each other quite well and there have been days when even the great soldier has found himself outnumbered and outmaneuvered. It is for them to choose. If my son finds himself with both of those very strong-willed young women at his side, I will be happy for him. If he chooses either of them, I will still be happy for him, and if he ends up with neither of them, I will simply hope that he finds the happiness he seeks. These things will resolve themselves as they should. Even an arch-plotter such as myself can only nudge the course of such things. I think if any such situation arises, it would be best kept on the other side of the gate. The details of such best not discussed, Mihara replied dryly. I suppose you are correct, Octavia agreed. Though I must admit, that for such an advanced culture, your people could probably stand to loosen up a little. She smirked at the colonel. I suppose that includes me as well, my lady, Mihara asked mildly. Perhaps just a little. If I get back to the Empire, there's a wonderful little place I would like to take you, where the masseuses are all Vulpans, she said only half teasing. They really know how to work the stress out. Somewhere in the void between worlds, as the convoy transited the gate, William Taylor Octavius shivered. Is something wrong, my lord? Aurelia asked, immediately noticing his discomfort. I don't know, he admitted. To be honest, I'm not sure I want to know. Don't worry about it, he told her. Yes, my lord, Aurelia answered, venturing a small smile. When Lady Octavia had informed her that she would be accompanying the heir back to their homelands, Octavia had explained everything that was expected of her, but also that this was an opportunity, that she hoped Aurelia would know the feelings that Octavia and Aurelia's mother shared for her father. Just be open to your possibilities, Octavia had told her. Soon transit was completed. While Her Imperial Highness was understandably anxious to hurry on to Italica, she needed to gather up millet and vermouth, her knights in residence, and debrief them before becoming acquainted with the horses Panache had selected for the return trip. In the meantime, Lieutenant Yanagita was waiting for them with instructions to escort the diplomatic party to General Hazama's office. For his part, Taylor reported into Colonel Emerson before going down to the settlement camp to check on Ainair and her son. With only 3 elves in Alnus settlement, he worried about them. Tuka seemed content as long as she was near Atami, but Ainair was a single mother cut off from her culture. Her considerable skills of less importance at Alnus. Taylor had some ideas on that as he and Aurelia walked down the neat line of cottages to one where a plum tree and a pair of blackthorns were now growing, carefully tended out front, still quite small but adding a definite touch of warmth and character to the environment. Taylor firmly but politely knocked. After a moment or two, the door opened to the pleasant face of Ainair. At 300, the high elf combined classical beauty with a quiet serenity. "Ah, hello, Taylor," she greeted. "Your journey went well, I trust." "It was eventful," he replied mildly, glancing over at Aurelia. "Oh. This is Aurelia, my newly assigned minder." The warrior bunny bowed in deference to the elf. "It is a pleasure to meet one of the high race, though I am surprised to meet one so far from the great northern forests. While the vast majority of our people live there, there are villages scattered across the continent at least. I have, in fact, heard tales of seafaring elves. So it is possible that our people reach beyond Falmart." She shook her head. "But forgive me. We need not stand in the doorway all day. Please, come in." Ainair smiled, inviting them inside. "Please, sit." She retrieved 2 cups and filled them with cider before filling another for herself. "I'm glad someone is keeping an eye on this one." The elf indicated Taylor to Aurelia. "It seems he has a talent for falling into trouble." "My lady has noted the same thing," Aurelia remarked. "Indeed." Taylor rolled his eyes. "I'm sitting right here, you know," he reminded them. "A good thing too," Ainair teased. "You're where we can both keep an eye on you." "Atami's the one getting into trouble," Taylor objected. "I just happened to be there when he does." It was time to change the subject. "Anyway, I came by to see how you and Galador were doing." Ainair gave a wistful smile. "I cannot complain. We are alive and together thanks to you. Our needs are met. I make a little money by making preserves and other things. There is still small game to be had and I've finished building a simple bow." She paused. "Mainly, I worry about Galador. It isn't that the other children are unkind. But he is the only elf. It's hard for him to fit in. I may be able to help with that," Taylor considered after a moment of consideration. "I'm being sent to the city of Italica. My people want to learn more about this world, so they're sending scholars of all kinds, and the Imperial Princess has agreed to let them set up their studies in Italica. I have a fair relationship with the knight she's leaving in charge there, so I'm supposed to be the go-between, between her and these scholars, making sure everyone gets along. I'd like you and Galador to come with me. I'm certain there will be people who will want to talk to you at length about your culture, your language, the history of your people and your stories. And I know that there are races other than humans living in Italica. Galador wouldn't have to feel like he was the only one different there." Ainair considered the offer. "I'm not sure. Where would we live? And we can't rely on charity forever. What would I do when not conversing with these learned men of yours?" Taylor thought for a moment. "You'll both be welcome in my home. And you said it yourself. I need as much help looking after myself as I can get. I mean it. Are you sure?" She glanced between Taylor and Aurelia. The warrior bunny's eyes seemed to twinkle mischievously. "I insist. Please come." Ainair thought carefully and nodded. "All right. Good. It's settled then." Ainair nodded. It wasn't like anyone would ever hold them to the details of this little agreement. In the meantime, Aurelia suppressed a smirk. She wasn't entirely certain, but if she was correct in her understanding. "Oh, my lord, if you only knew what you've gotten yourself into." Not far from Aenar's quarters, Rory Mercury was receiving a visitor of her own. The worn features of the shepherd were by now a familiar sight to the soldiers and refugees around Alness, and few seemed to take any particular notice of his comings and goings as he talked about looking for his flock. It was of no real surprise that the old man would come to pay respect to the Apostle of Emroy, as she was seen by many as the patron of the Alness settlement. "Shall we take a walk, Your Eminence?" Rory nodded pleasantly at the invitation. "So, little one, I heard that you went on a little adventure." Rory nodded, reminding herself once more that though mostly ignored among the deities of Falmart, that Chorus was far from merely an aspect of the forge god Duncan, and was in fact much older than Duncan, or indeed, older than any of the 12 exalted ones. "It is an amazing world beyond the gate." The old one nodded. "I would imagine. I have seen that their weapons are far beyond those of this world." "Probably beyond what Hardy imagines, but what else did you see?" "A city that stretches as far as human eyes can see, towers rising into the sky and filled with millions of people." Rory considered everything she had seen carefully, especially the people who looked at her and the others with curiosity, and those who had wanted to use them for their own ends. Millions of people. They have great wealth and abundance. Still, all human, the noble and the petty, generous and greedy. Humans with ambitions. As a people, they are the same as any other, but their knowledge gives them the potential to do both great and terrible things. "Just as do we," Chorus reminded her. "Which is more dangerous, knowledge or ignorance?" Rory smiled. "Knowledge can either harm or help. Ignorance can destroy, but it can never create." "Very good," the old shepherd replied. "And that knowledge is coming, as I see that Hardy has let the children jam the door open," Chorus noted. "I'll have to have a talk with her soon." Rory shivered slightly. Hardy made even her nervous, but if Chorus said that he was planning to go into Hardy's realm, then the underworld would be no safe haven for its mistress if the older god decided to admonish her. Chorus noted Rory's expression and waved it off. "Even with all of her flaws. Even though I have had to fix a few of her mistakes. I would not wish to see her hurt. But change is coming. Ignoring it won't help." Rory frowned as she considered the sights she had seen in the other world. "Of course, we've done our collective best to keep the races of this world from advancing too much. Whether that means too much for their own good or what we're comfortable with is the question," Chorus noted. "Children need to grow. Sometimes, they even need to feel pain, as much as we would wish otherwise." Rory turned to look upon the old god. "What are you thinking?" "That by keeping them from growing, we're inhibiting our own advancement. The gods play with their toys and break them when they get bored. That's not enough for me." He stopped and smiled. "In the meantime, your final ascension will be only after 30 years. You must be excited." "There are things I will miss," Rory admitted. "Oh, tell me." "I will lose the ability to feel. I want to live, not just exist." At this, the old shepherd laughed in genuine amusement. Rory flashed him a look and he held up his hand in apology. "I'm sorry, child, but you believe that nonsense?" he asked in disbelief. "Nonsense?" Rory objected. "Total nonsense. Do I strike you as a being who doesn't feel? Is a lack of feeling why Hardy pines to have you in her chambers?" Rory threw him a disgusted look at that, but Chorus merely continued. "This lack of emotion must be why Emroy is such a calm, mellow figure." "Oh, Rory, a sword is still a sword, no matter what metal it is forged from or how it is reforged. All born of mortal flesh. We are who we are." He gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "If a new age is to come, there will be a need for someone to help guide it. I am still the Apostle of Emroy. I must follow his will," Rory reminded. "As long as he gets his blood and souls and trust me. As long as mortals are mortals, he will. Emroy does not care how you carry out your duties. Trust me on this." Chorus smiled. "Well, I feel I have taken enough of your time, Your Eminence. I must be about my flock. May the gods find you in their favor." With that, the shepherd left Rory with things to consider, including one particular and personally relevant observation. "Commander, I think this game just became much more interesting. This is the end of part 12 of this What If. I hope you guys like it. Leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel to see more amazing contents.